How successful is your restaurant? How profitable is your restaurant? Imagine if you worked every single position over 10 years. Imagine what you'd learn and imagine what you could do with that knowledge to improve your business. You don't have to do all that. If you listen to this week's episode, you're going to find out. I'm with Daniel Frazier of Pharmacy Burger, and he will talk all about the key nuggets of operations inside and out. He's going to give us valuable tools, advice, experience on every aspect of the business: marketing, finance, guest service, hospitality, systems, you name it, we talk about it. So don't miss this episode. Speaking of systems, one of the systems is knowing your costs and knowing how to maximize the profits across your restaurant. I have a course, it's called the Restaurant Profit Maximizer. It's 40 minutes of really powerful, action-packed information that you can apply immediately to boost your bottom line. Check that out now at restaurantrockstars.com/profit maximizer. Now, on with the episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Restaurants everywhere don't take inventory. It's not about placing next week's order. Inventory is calculating the value of your food and beverage, which can be thousands of dollars every week. Taking inventory determines your true food and beverage costs. Why leave your restaurant profit to chance when there's a powerful inventory system? Sculpture Hospitality are the restaurant inventory experts that make it simple. They don't just manage your food and beverage inventory, they give you a clear picture of your restaurant's profitability. Get a no-obligation free consult at sculpturehospitality.com/rockstar. Your restaurant menu is your most important and effective marketing tool. Check out TerraSlate. TerraSlate offers waterproof, rip-proof, antimicrobial menus that are easy to clean and last. TerraSlate leads the industry, shipping menus to every state and over 100 countries with a super-fast one-day turnaround and free overnight shipping. Try TerraSlate. Your team will love them. Go to terraslate.com. That's TerraSlate.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thanks so much for being with us. And Daniel, welcome to the show today. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Now, you have an extensive background in just about every position in every restaurant, and we're going to get into that. But before do you have any crazy restaurant stories that today you can look back on it and laugh maybe, but it's like we got through it somehow, and I can't believe this happened, but it happened.
Yeah, there are a few that come to mind when you ask that question, but one of the ones that it really is, as you say, it's a pretty fond memory in retrospect, but it was pretty miserable in the moment. It was just after Christmas. A couple of the members of the management team were out of town. I had just gotten back into town and I wasn't even supposed to be working this day, but I got called in because they were like, "Hey, there's a leak on the roof or something and we're having an issue." Okay. Weather in Nashville is very volatile and we're also in a repurposed building. It's from the 1940s. So was the original build of our site. There's always little things with it. We're always updating things, but there's sometimes nooks and crannies of stuff you need to deal with in our building.
Of course.
And so we had a bunch of rain and then it had gotten cold really fast. So it had frozen on the roof. And after this, we ended up replacing most of the roof, but there were the water froze like in little nooks and crevices in the roof to where like water just started seeping in mostly around our bar area. And then in and around the AC units to where we just had it was just the way it ended up working out was it was just these like little like streams of water pouring out of the ceiling.
Streams of water. Yikes.
Yeah. Yes. But not flows. They were like little trickles like you would see, like maybe if you go caving and they were like coming off a stalactite.
Sure.
They were very
but
thin,
it's steady drip. Yeah.
steady drip. So it was just the whole day was a combination of me, because it was still like misting, raining while being cold. Was me like covering myself in trash bags, going up on the roof and trying to cover and tape the different holes as we found them, and then running around with buckets, catching the water. It got to the point where it was like, I'm not sure we should be open, but we actually ended up, after a few minutes, we got it covered. We did have to we can't use this cooler for a little bit. We can't use this. And then we had to cover some things up, and it was super dramatic, but it's definitely one of those things that was like, I just didn't think I would be running up and down a ladder covered in trash bags taping cardboard boxes and anything I could find just to
Yeah.
try to get this place up and running.
Did it affect the guest experience at all? Did any of the customers say, "Hey, what's that? I'm getting dripped on," and you're behind the bar, and it's like they're in service, and yet they keep getting dripped on, and it's
So,
visible to the guests and all this. Did you
so
see all that going on?
it was visible to the guest,
Yeah.
and they were what's happening, but we tried to just make half a joke out of it, half a like we're just in for a wild ride. Let's all have fun. Thankfully, it wasn't on any food, and because it was in the bar area, we made sure to keep stuff away from drinks and beverages.
Mm,
And again, it was like we're not going to serve most of
sure.
it. Thankfully, a lot of it was like near bottled and canned beer, so we're going to clean all this beer down, and we're not going to serve any of this the rest of the night. We'll wipe all this down tomorrow, kind
Oh,
of stuff.
man.
But that being said, thankfully, not a lot of stuff on food, not a lot of stuff on customers, but they were just like, "What's happening? Why is there water everywhere?" But
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
it
Yeah,
was
you
it was
just
it was a mess, but it ended up even in that moment, it was so absurd that it spiraled into not enjoyable, but it was just so bizarre. It was hard to be mad. It was just like, this is just nuts. Had a few of those moments where you just have to laugh and roll with it. And
yeah, and you can laugh at yourself too. And it just brings to mind something crazy happened to me that I'm going to share. It's like we had our biggest restaurant was seasonal, and it was a winter only operation, and we would turn off our automatic delivery because we really didn't need to keep our tanks filled with propane, and which ran all our cooking equipment. And literally, we opened in November for the next season. I forgot to turn us on automatic delivery. The tanks were practically dry. And now it's Saturday night and the restaurant is full and the grill is full of steaks and burgers and all that kind of stuff and our fryers. And it goes, and literally everything just goes out. And people are like, "What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" And it suddenly dawned on me. And I go running out with a flashlight and I open the cover of the tank, and sure enough, they're all on empty. And I'm like, talk about a blunder, right? You got a full
yeah,
restaurant. How do you get past that? Thankfully, the propane company, emergency service, they came
sure.
within, they probably got there 20 minutes later, and 20
Wow.
minutes later, we're cooking again. But still, what an interruption to service. I still to this day can't remember how we got through that and how many meals we probably had to comp and just
Yeah.
make it right for the guest and all that. And some
Yeah.
people were just good natured about it. I
Yeah.
transparent. "Hey, this is what happened. It's my fault. I'm so sorry." And
Yeah.
people forgive you for that if you handle it the right way. So thanks for sharing. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Daniel, you got an extensive experience, and I'm still amazed because you must have such a passion for this industry that you started out roughly 10 years ago as a host. And then obviously you moved up to server, and then you were lead server, and then you were a part-time manager, and then assistant GM, and then you switched over to the bar and you're a beverage director, and then a bar manager, and you became GM. You've done it all in this business, and there must be so many key learnings. But what are some of the biggest things that you learned from those experiences that you've now applied? Because you're director of operations for a company called Pharmacy Burger. There must be so many things that just made you who you are based on that extensive experience.
Yeah, no, it's been a wild but enjoyable ride. I've been very grateful to work for a wonderful company, work with a lot of great people that's made tough times better than they could have been. And yeah, I've really just fallen in love with this industry. And when you talk about lessons that you learn, it really all comes down to when you just started. And this is something I've tried to make my ethos both then and now, is that if you actually care about the happiness and the well-being of your customers, we're all trying to transact with them. We want
Yes,
dollars for service.
for sure.
But if what matters to you is actually that they enjoy themselves and are genuinely happy, genuinely enjoy and love their service, and it really matters to you, you can't lose. And you will do what you need to do in every moment to get done everything. You'll be invested, you'll be prepared, and there's also a mindfulness part of this where you will be invested in what's happening in a way that is both satisfactory to you and the customer. And then this applies both at all stages of service and management. Management does shift to where you have to be both worried about the satisfaction of the guest and also your employees. Although those two things, how you handle those are both very different, and it's not a one-to-one. But when it matters to you that the guests are happy and you can be invested, everything else flows down from that. And people can feel it. You hear a lot, I feel like these days, especially since of the pandemic that service quality has dropped. You hear that people talk. I go somewhere and someone's got a headphone in, or they're not paying attention, or even if they're not using technology in a way that takes people out of the moment, they're just not invested. They're rude. They're short. It's about me. The way you put that on its face is, again, you make it genuinely about the guest and their happiness. And again, not everything is possible in a restaurant. There are things you literally just cannot do. But if you genuinely care, everything will flow out of that. People feel that you care. And then their enjoyment, that's where it becomes symbiotic, where like them enjoying themselves fulfills you. And work doesn't have to be this thing that drains you. It actually fills you up.
I'm getting true leadership here in speaking with you, and you're clearly in a position of crossing all aspects of your restaurants. And as director of operations, let's start by asking what your primary role is. Like, what are you in charge of, most responsible for? And then I want to dive into leadership a little deeper.
Yeah. So we have 3 locations right now. 2 operate directly, and 1 is a co-production in the B&A airport. So I do oversee that. It's very hands off. It's mostly communicating with management there, making sure brand is represented correctly. Details of day-to-day operations are managed by the team there, which is great because airports are such a specialized situation. It's great to have a partner that is all up in that.
Yep.
But they've been great to work with. It's a very different process than what I'm used to, where I'm very hands-on and can do whatever I want. There you have a chain of emails and people to approve it. But that being said, it's great. And we really enjoyed working with them. As far as my restaurants, we have 2 locations. One is a fast casual, the Assembly Food Hall in downtown Nashville. And the other is I said that wrong, excuse me. That one is a counter service, a QSR in the downtown.
Yes.
And then it's fast casual in East Nashville. 2 different modes of service, similar menus. My role is to oversee the operations and make sure the business is profitable, sustainable, and growing. And those are like the very high level things. Beyond that, the first step is managing and overseeing my team of managers at both locations to make sure things are running properly. They're running their staffs, hitting our both sales and cost goals. Beyond that, it's, as far as me directly, it's vision for the future of the company, especially regarding these locations, but then also talking about growth. If ever there was an opportunity for that, I've been involved in sorting that out. And then beyond that, then it's everything then flows down right to the guest, and it's making sure employees are set up to function and operate with excellence to make sure our guests are taken care of. So it's them, the customer's happy, employees are set up to take care of them. Managers are equipped to both manage those operations and equipped our employees to fulfill their duties. And then I'm back here making sure all of those systems run. And it's one of those things where, like, when things are going well, I have less to do. When I'm doing my job right, there's actually less to do. But then that's where, okay, we're going to dig in. Where can we find new edges, new ways to save money? Where are some new initiatives? Are our software solutions still working for us? So that's where those things are coming in. Ideally, you're not solving lots of problems because things are working well and you have good systems. And then that's where improvement comes in. When you're caught chasing your tail all the time because things aren't running well. And that's really one thing I learned as a manager is if you're having to be too involved, it depends on your structure service, I should say. But if you're having to be too involved, you're probably not doing something right. And you're probably not using your time well. Your employees should be set up to fulfill your job to do that. Again, some places have managers work very hands-on, and that is a form of service that can totally work. It's totally viable. So it just depends on how you're structured.
That totally seems to work well for me. And what's coming to mind right now is most organizations obviously have this top-down structure where everything trickles down from above. But I don't often see organizations that also work from the bottom up, meaning regardless of your position, if you're a dishwasher or a counter person or someone in a line position, their job is, besides pleasing the guest and putting out quality product, it's making your boss or your leader or your manager's job easier, not harder.
Yes.
So that person doesn't have to do more. They can do less because everyone is doing not only what they're supposed to be doing, but going above and beyond. So wouldn't it be a powerful thing if every organization in this industry of ours worked top down and bottom up, and everybody meets in the middle, and the end result is a great guest experience, everything, and team spirit, team spirit, all those things?
Absolutely. That's the thing. And I coach this in my team, especially new team members. And sometimes we get there, sometimes we don't. But when we work as a team, everything is easy. It just all flows there. You end up realizing I've got so much time. I'm like, I'm always ahead. The guests are happy. I sold more drinks. It's like all these things just flow. And you're like, and you're not even, when we're working as a team, you're not even sure how we got there. When we're not working as a team and there's a few people really hustling and a few people slacking, everything feels disjointed. A few people are frustrated. A few people have too much time on their hands, but then because they've not been paying attention, now they're behind. And because they're behind, now they do that. It's funny how you can train a server or any staff member, let's say. They are like, how you ask them to do something new, and there's someone who's need to working on their time management and their availability and their teamwork, and the system needs to flow better. They'll be like, there's no way I have time for this. And it's funny where you have to read, it's like, you don't have time for this because you're not putting first things first. When you have put first things first, you actually have so much more time than you think, but you're behind because of these mistakes downstream. So it feels like there's not time.
In my coaching practice, I work with lots of different restaurants in different fast casual and full serve. And I definitely hear these questions all the time. Why don't people show up on time? Why don't they do what? Sometimes their performance is good, but they're not consistent and all this kind of stuff. And my first question is accountability. How do you ensure accountability? How does that work in your organization to make sure that people not only know what expectations are, but they're working daily to not only meet those expectations, but in some cases exceed them? Otherwise, managers can be setting their team up for failure, not giving them clear direction and communication, just expecting it's just going to automatically happen, and it doesn't. How do you handle accountability? My restaurant sold tons of fried foods, but what a hassle dealing with the fryer oil and cleaning hoods from all that grease. Restaurant Technologies handles everything end to end. They deliver, filter, monitor, collect, and recycle your waste cooking oil. Their AutoMist system reduces the fire risk with automated hood and flue cleaning, hassle-free. As a customer, you'll save 10 to 15% on insurance premiums and even get bonuses for new customer referrals. Go to rti-inc.com or call 866-399-3639 to get started. I know from my experience that growing your business can mean big-time logistical challenges, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Believe me, when I owned restaurants, this was a challenge for me. Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then, drivers from Uber's courier network pick them up at your place and deliver them right to your customer's door. Sounds simple, right? Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It can be one of the more challenging aspects. The best thing to start with is clear, open, and honest communication, meaning feedback and accurate assessment of performance by your team members. And then also a really important thing to do, which is it's hard to do. It's really important to do that for yourself. You need to be self-evaluating, something that is really important to do, whether you're as a staff member, and that's even whether or not management's involved. Let's say you work at a place that's really dysfunctional. It's really important you self-evaluate and you're self-critical. What can I do? What can I do to improve it? And you can become a very valued team member just by doing that process in your head if you can have an honest assessment of yourself.
Agreed.
You don't have to be reliant on the system. But let's say we're working in a healthier environment and we're trying to instill those things in a team member. One, we start with open communication again. And then as people aren't meeting expectations, I've always found that people talk about the sandwich approach where you say a good thing, a negative thing, and the coachable thing, and then end on another positive. That's one that works really well. But I've found that there are lots of different tips and tricks on doing it, but just being honest without emotion as much as possible is just the best way to do it. As much as you can relate to that. That being said, depending on your relationship with the person, how familiar you are with them and you just need to use your people skills to communicate with them in a way that works. That's really all it is. It's a people business. We're doing that same thing with our customers when they need something. We get way less time with them, but you're going to solve a problem using you're sensitive as a person as best you can. You just do the same thing with your employees. I need this out of you. I need this. You follow it up. And then that way, whenever your disciplinary process is beyond that, if inappropriate behavior or underperformance continues, then you just, whether it's a verbal warning, then a write-up, and then beyond, whatever that process is. Some places have very strict, some places less. You're going to follow your procedures there. I've seen different systems work where things are lots of communication, but more lenient. I've seen things where it's a little more strict. We tend to take a happy medium of lots of informal coaching and communication And then once a line's crossed after there, that's when we're going to do a very official verbal warning. And then from there, we're going to do a write-up process. I am a firm believer that write-ups need to happen when they need to happen, but they lose meaning when they're thrown around. So
Agreed.
if you're doing written documentation all the time, it just stops meaning anything. And then from there, the sad reality is if people just continue, even if it's just tardiness, I know there's been different times where the job market's hard, where it feels like you can't let people go. And I know we're in a different situation now. But if people won't uphold the standards you're set out and you clearly communicated, you just have to eventually part ways. It just is what it is.
Let me ask you a question, because we're talking about a clear system that is very important, disciplinary procedure for minor infractions, major infractions, and you need to draw the line and have those policies that are enforced, that are fair and not impartial, that are impartial, of
Yes.
course. But there's that balance, because there's still a lot of this industry that's struggling with the labor thing. And there's that feeling of we need them more than they need us. And certain things slide, which then sends a clear message to the other team members. There's really, the inmates are running the prison.
Yes.
What's that balance? That's a tough one, isn't it?
It is. No, it is. And that's one where you have to be honest too, where with yourself and what the standard needs to be, and then try to be uniform with it. And let's say you've got someone that's tardy, but it's 7 minutes late once a week. And again, it's always the morning shift before we're open. On the one hand, this probably doesn't actually matter that much. Practically speaking,
Sure,
it does
I get
matter
that.
because it affects the team.
Yes.
With that being said, do we work out something, and do you figure out, hey, what time can you actually get here? This is where finding a human approach, especially if this is a team member that does everything else right. Literally the only problem is that occasionally they're running a little bit late. Then that way, find a way to get them there on time. And maybe it is, they just get scheduled at 10:15, whatever it is. And then we find a way where they're going to stay late. Again, this is a small potatoes thing for smaller corporations. You can't do some of these things once you get super large, at least not from a top-down decision-making side. But on a human level, hey, you're going to come in 15 minutes late, but you're going to also take out everybody's trash when you're done. That's just going to be like our deal. That's what you're going to do for the team, because we know we're going to do that. Finding a win, especially for an employee that does everything else, it's just getting creative with it. Because usually I found that the rest of the staff, if someone is tardy, they only care about people that are tardy that they don't already like, unless it's like excessive.
I get that. Sure.
So as far as a staff issue, if it's a beloved staff member, you're actually only going to make people mad by letting them go. Now, that being said, you have to do what you have to do as a business to run and do it, but you can't discipline based off the opinion of their teammates. But you have to take these things into consideration when you firing a beloved team member, sometimes for an egregious violation if something happened, is something you just have to do. But you also have to be aware that people aren't going to be happy about this. Some people are going to be happy even if they become aware of the situation, which obviously we're never going to do. But sometimes they end up sharing what happened. And it's just something you're going to have to realize, hey, when someone is beloved, it's going to be something that affects morale when they're no longer with us.
Well, that brings up another thing. I ran restaurants for 23 years, and we had certain key people that the guests just loved, and they had a following, and people came just for these people. And then all of a sudden, the team member, does something that's a major violation that puts people in safety issues, or just something that's blatant that continues. And you got to let somebody go, like you said, because it puts the business at risk, or other people. But then privacy laws, and everybody wants to know. Suddenly your customers are disgruntled at the restaurant or the bar because you let this person go, and they all want to know why, but you can't tell them why. And I've been in that situation more than once.
It stinks, and same.
Yeah.
And thankfully not many, but it's happened, and you just have to roll with it, and you know that character shows, and that while it's a people business and having the right people is really important, you have to also believe in yourself that we had this great employee, and it's not that we can just recreate them out of nothing. Hey, we're going to do what we can do to do the best. It really does stink. It stinks when it hurts the chemistry of the team. It really stinks when there's a relationship with customers, because that's the one really. There's no way to make them aware. And you never want to and it wouldn't even be slander, but you don't ever want to put a former employee in a negative light with customers. It's really uncomfortable.
It certainly is. Yeah. It's one of those things that happens, and you can only do what you can do. From a PR standpoint, again, you can't throw anyone under the bus. You can't divulge things. You open yourself up to potential lawsuits. It's a slippery slope, and you got to have tact and professionalism and how you deal with it on both sides, with the team member as well as with your guests and other team members as well.
It's like you said, I try to think about it too. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's a lawsuit issue. It's a liability issue. It's also just not the right way to treat people. Like gossiping is bad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like just in and of itself,
Clearly.
even if there were no legal ramifications, it's just, hey, this is just not the right, it's just not what we should do.
But you also have to squash it because the team don't necessarily have that professionalism. And those that are in the know and know what the behind the scenes is, now they're going to gossip, not only maybe to guess what just happened, but you got to damage control that as soon as it happens and just let people know what the larger repercussions can be and will be, in addition to the person's feelings that's in the middle of it. So thank you for sharing your perspective on that, because it's a biggie. Now, Nashville, what a competitive town. I was there probably 2 years ago, and downtown is just honky-tonk bars, and there's restaurants everywhere. What a competitive environment. But I think you said that the labor thing has turned the tide, at least in your area. Are you having any staffing challenges anymore?
Right now, it's one of those things that's knock on my wood desk right here. No, thankfully for the most part. And I think overall, we were largely avoided some of the major issues that I heard had. We did have a few shifts, I think in 2021 and maybe beginning of 2022, where the schedule was already lighter than it was. And then one of the things that I've talked about this before a little bit was coming out of that, I just noticed a huge shift in the amount of call outs. Often for people actually being sick, it was like, this just feels like this didn't used to happen at this level. And I don't know if this was an increased sensitivity or it was literally just more people being ill. I'm really not sure what was going on there, but we had a few days where we had all hands on deck managers in the kitchen just because making the best of it. Thankfully, it was a Monday night, so it wasn't too crazy busy, but we already had a light shift scheduled and 3 of them called out. So we've got dish and nothing else. So you just make it go. That being said, beyond that, by trying to create a good culture and by taking care of our staff, I think we've been able to avoid major staffing issues. You're going to always have some turnover. A lot of our turnover, thankfully, is for good reasons. People moving on to careers and interests and things. So thankfully, we get a lot of positive stories like that, or just moving and life stuff. But beyond that, I have seen the market shift where before it felt like you couldn't find workers at all. And now we get people reaching out and really wanting a job. So that has definitely shifted just a little bit. Because of that, you will see sometimes where you hire someone new and you maybe only get them for 2 weeks and they just bebop onto something else. We've had a little bit of that, but thankfully, again, not a lot. But that's something in the market I've seen, at least for us in Nashville, where there are more people looking for work, but those people are looking for a great fit. So you really got to invest them in. And if you like them as they're getting started, you really want to make sure you kind of get them hooked on being with you, because they will potentially just bebop on somewhere else if it doesn't feel right.
So that's interesting because, again, we want to retain our good people. We want to find new people that fit, like you mentioned, and then we want to retain those people. And then we want those people to take on additional responsibility, those that want to, and grow in our organization, right? And that's all part of the company culture of what you've established. So is there a philosophy that you share? Like, what's your onboarding to introduce people or orient them to your company, what it's like, and the fun factor and the team spirit factor and the leadership and the clear expectations? And not every job is a fun place to go to work. It's just a paycheck, right? But you're taking things several levels above that. But how do you communicate that up front in the people that walk through the door to find the right person, and then to instill in them what your spirit is and how you want the guest experience to be, and how we all want to be this amazing team that literally goes above and beyond? That's a big ask, but people are looking for that, right? People want to know that they fit and that maybe their voice matters and that their opinions count and that they can contribute to the bigger picture and feel good about it.
Absolutely. No, those are all great points. And it's really important that I've found on that point that finding the right person when you're hiring is probably the most important part. Yes, you have to train them and do that well. But I feel if you hire just the right person and your restaurant isn't a total disaster, you can even fumble the training part a little bit and it can be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Obviously, again, that's not what you want to do. It's not a good plan,
Yeah.
but a real go-getter winner person with just a super magnetic personality, they're going to be successful. So if you find one of them, if you're in an interview and you're just like, I'm like, I don't know what the right way to say it, but it's almost, I feel like I'm falling in love with this person, like in a work way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
So
wish I had 20
charismatic.
more of you.
I know, exactly. Then you just need to hire them and just forget about everything else. And then obviously we still want to give them the correct training and everything.
Sure.
But a
Well, like
person
you
like
said,
that,
represent the brand. They also have to be brand ambassadors
absolutely.
and be on brand with the guests and to be a
Yes,
positive reflection of your brand.
absolutely. So that's for in our front of house speaking, looking
Uh-huh.
places, we're
Yeah.
looking for that magnetic personality. And then beyond that, it's all just a level of innate mental aptitude to do the tasks. Serving isn't super, super challenging, but you do need to be able to have a running list in your head that
Hmm.
you can just keep ticking off. And
Right.
certain people struggle with that. Some people really excel with that. So that's basically figuring that out through our conversation interviewing. And then also the training process. That's one thing we've learned as well is that in our first week, 2 weeks, it's always best if if it's very obvious it's not working for us, it's just best to go ahead and part ways. We want to coach them. We want to give them a shot, but it's just, this is not a culture fit. Because sometimes you have an interview with somebody and it's just the person they presented in the interview is not the person that showed up to work. That has
Exactly.
happened
This
before.
is true.
Again,
Because people are, I don't
yeah,
know, I think it's human nature because if
it
you're
is.
trying to apply for a job, you're telling people what you think they want to hear to get the
Yes.
job if you want the job. And then once you got the job, it's okay, I'm just here for the paycheck now. I've seen that too. And wow. And that's where
It,
the training comes in, right? And the
absolutely.
indoctrination in this is the way
Yes.
it is, and this is our team spirit, and
Absolutely.
this is where the expectations lie, and here's the discipline, and all that has to be upfront delivered and not in some
Absolutely.
boring, this is our employee manual and it's 30 pages long. And as soon as they get it, it's pitched in the back seat of the car, never to be seen again. It's literally
Yes.
every single day how they interact with leaders and team members, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's giving them that pitch both in the
Yeah.
interview and then as you're onboarding them, getting them ready. And then from there, we have a lot of our training is done by trusted team members of the staff. We like that because you get them integrated with the team quicker. We've also found we don't have a rule about this, but I have really found that you do better in hiring when you do hire in little bunches. Hiring 2 or 3 people, they feel like they're their own little team. And so it's not always, you don't always have job openings to make this make sense. But I've found that like you hire sometimes one-offs, they get integrated a little less than if you can. And this works for us as well, naturally, because we have a large outdoor area at the East Nashville location. So we do a decent amount of hiring in both, and usually in the spring season as we get ready for those busy months. So this has happened naturally. There's usually like a 6-week period where we do a decent amount of hiring every year. But all that being said, even in our other little departments, a lot of times you start them off together, they'll bond, they come in together and they more quickly will feel integrated and have someone they feel like they're going through this process with. And that us versus them thing that can happen with new employees and old employees gets in sooner.
Gotcha. Awesome. Wow. That was a real deep dive into the whole employee staffing discipline thing. That was great. Thanks. Let's switch gears a little bit because you talked about overseeing the finances and obviously the profitability of your company and all those things. Let's talk about KPIs and the finances. What are the critical things that you look out for, say on a weekly basis? What's the big?
Labor is going to be the big one. So we're going to be digging deep into that and into our labor hours, what we're spending. Most of that is kitchen, although it's a little different because it's a counter service model at the food hall. That's everyone plays a part there. It's a tip share doing that in that environment. So that one's very different. But we're starting there. From there, we're looking at key items, especially on our menus. Because for us, beef and potatoes are the big ones that fluctuate. So we're making sure we're in good ranges with those so that our food costs come in line. We do 13 4-week rolling periods. So at the end of those, especially looking at our inventories period to period, we do a weekly inventory, but making sure those are on hands. And that's one thing as we're coming into our slower season, we're looking to reduce our on hands, making sure our spends drop with those as well. So those are the two big ones. Our beverage costs are honestly, I used to be the beverage director, like we talked about. I have a great manager that does that now. I definitely check up on it. But honestly, things have been going so well that it's something you make sure it just looks like it's supposed to. It's not something I need to dig into super greatly. but we're also not as bar heavily focused. So that's a part of it there too. So
Let's talk about that for a second. Your
yeah.
beverage program, what does that include right now? Is it beer and wine only? Do you do a full liquor bar at all?
So we don't do a full liquor bar, but we do have a range of liquor offerings now. I introduced a cocktail menu, a very limited cocktail menu, probably about
Yeah,
5 years
streamlined.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we thought it was something that the market our customers were asking us for. And also it was a way for us to offer a really great beverage and also reduce some of our costs because those things can all come into focus there. Started out with just 2 or 3 drinks. We've expanded out now to we have a whole little array of drinks, but that is still a smaller portion of our menu. We are still being a beer garden. We have a long bottle and canned beer list. We have 12 taps, one of which is always root beer. Or excuse me, we have 13 taps now. We actually added a specialty draft line recently. But so we're very draft beer focused with that beer garden theme, but offering liquor has been a huge add. And also we do get the groups of bachelor parties, so they're going to want to do shots. So it was a point where it's just we're just avoiding a sale for people by just not having this. Even though I love the specific vision when we opened of really being a beer garden, we got to where we had outgrown that, and having some specialty cocktails and beverage offerings just made sense for us across the board.
Yeah, it's a draw, especially in a town like Nashville. It's
Absolutely.
want to drink when they go out to eat. It's profitable. It doesn't have to be the main focus, but you got 13 taps in the beer garden. That's more than enough to keep the beer turning over and giving people variety, what they're looking for. And I love the cocktail list. I think every restaurant should have a signature specialty cocktail list with interesting names because that captures the public's imagination and people love to order interesting new drinks. So it sounds like you're doing that really well also. How about a marketing plan? Is there strategic marketing that really works for you?
So that's a great question. Word of mouth has been our main way we've grown over the years. As far as actual advertising, we've done very little.
Good. Yeah, you're not wasting your money on stuff you can't track that's got no ROI to it.
Absolutely.
Good.
And occasionally we will do a little thing here and there with some of our local print locations. Like there's a Best of Nashville thing. We've done something with that. The cost is very low and you feel like you're also supporting something in the community. So it's a win. And even like you said, if the ROI is relatively low, at least but those we've seen some feedback on. There's their issue where they rank the things, gets in front of a lot of faces. But beyond that, we do a lot of outreach to influencers in the community and people traveling through. And we have a lot of people come in and dine with us, try to have a great experience and try to set those up. And also we have a decent amount of outreach. And obviously we want to make sure I've had some outreach in the past from people that were had basically fake accounts, which is pretty funny. It's something to watch out for if you're a burgeoning group. So you want to vet these people a little bit, make sure that your engagement is real, but it's a great way to very naturally and organically get in front of people. And this social media, both your own and other people talking about you, is a great way this is the way people make choices nowadays. They see a meal or they see food on their phone and then they want to go eat it. And the best way to look hip. Yeah, exactly. And that's the way things look hip. It's all social media. It's all social media related.
It is for sure.
Doing your own content generation can be a great way to do it. Outsourcing that to firms, if that's the right thing for your business, can be the social media landscape has changed a lot. It is less organic, I think, than it used to be. You need to be pretty strategic with what you're doing there. So as far as that goes, that's what we've thought there. But I have found as well that comping a meal, let's say for an influencer visit with a lot of highly engaged followers in a demo that we respond well to, is a great way to very low cost bring someone in. And then it can also have a spiral effect of where, let's say you have just for example, you have a mom influencer, she's in your community, reach out to people. It can cause a spiral of people posting about something where it can be exponential is what I'm saying, where they come and other people come, they post and it's it can, obviously I'm talking about virality, but even on a very smaller scale, those are things where you want to be careful still what you're doing. You want to make sure that people that come in represent your brand. And again, there literally are people that are just trying to get a free meal. And this is less than it used to be, but I had a few people reach out to me in the past where they had done that whole pay for followers thing. They had 10 posts and you could tell it was this is not a real account. So you want to make sure you're vetting these things. But we have a team that helps with that and they do a great job. So we've had a lot of success doing that. Beyond that, we've done a little bit of TV promo, which is free media, which is great. And it's fun to get up in front of people. And as much as the network TV is like, doesn't resonate with maybe younger consumers the way it used to, older folks still watch a lot of network TV. You'll do a spot talking about a burger and the restaurant will be full the next day. People will be like, I saw it on TV. So it's, you know, it works.
That's good that you're getting the feedback there. I love the influencers. I don't think enough restaurants take advantage of influencers. And it's great if you can track performance from a particular influencer and then give them some sort of, like we did. We'd give you a trade back in the restaurant for every dollar that came in the door, and we tracked all that. And that worked really great for us. That's really important. All these things. How about loyalty? What do you do for loyalty?
So right now, we may look next year doing something a little more sophisticated, but right now we're doing I guess the two things. We did just start doing a new system, but one, we have a burger card with a stamp.
Okay.
Because we're one location, it's easy. It's something you can hand off. They buy 8 burgers. The ninth is on us. It's a great way to get back in the door. Again, pretty rudimentary. Toast can do some more advanced things, but we liked having a physical medium that we could hand off there.
Of course. And they keep it in their wallet or whatever it works.
Absolutely. And
under the refrigerator magnet.
Yeah, no, that's true. In their wallet. But we have a few dedicated guests that like, they love it. They come back, they get redeemed all the time. So we feel good about that. There are some more advanced systems I know Toast can do where you have credit systems. I've not leaned into those because like, I just find them annoying when I run into them and out in the wild. That being said, I know a lot of places have had success using the more advanced tech. It's just, and I probably discounted it because of my personal feelings there a little bit, which is probably not fair. Beyond that, we're using a new system though called Ovation for guest feedback maintenance. And we are only a little over a month into using it. And I can't say good enough things about it. Basically, it reaches out with them to do a text anytime we receive a phone number from a guest, whether that's from an online order or for them getting a receipt. There's also little QR codes on our receipts. Basically, they can then give us a little survey. It's an internal survey. Let us know how their meal went. If they love their meal and they give us the full 5 stars, it prompts them to post that review publicly.
Oh, I like that.
Anything less than 5 stars, it gives us a private text, or there's a back-end software that we can use for our management team to dialogue with them directly. The customer can opt out at any point if they don't want to, but they can say, hey, I picked up my order. My burger was XYZ. Then we can just chat with them right away. If it's something where we need to either comp a meal or offer a discount on the next visit, you can literally do that right there in the software. And it's really phenomenal. And we already got really good feedback from our guests publicly, but I have seen a difference in both public negative feedback and an increase in positive feedback. And we were already doing pretty well there, which is great. Because the thing that stinks about a Google review is it's great people sharing about their experience. But if there was an issue, I can't do anything. You can respond, but nobody ever replies with a Google review. When I capture this here, one, obviously we're keeping it private between us, but I can actually solve the problem. Usually if there's something that they want to talk about, and I've had a few instances where someone had an issue and they just misunderstood something. And we're able to just, hey, this is why this happened, and very politely explain and apologize. And they just literally respond, oh, I misunderstood. I'm so sorry. And we actually literally we're able to clear something up and keep a customer. There are other solutions there, but I can't recommend Ovation enough. And then there's some other software doing the same thing and also pretty affordable. So if you're a business with at least decent revenue overall, I think a system like this makes a lot of sense to be able to take care of your customers.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's guest service mated to technology that enhances the hospitality and the efficiency and guest satisfaction. That's tremendous. Boy, Daniel, we've covered a lot of ground today, and you've given us so many nuggets of key learnings that are hard won from in the trenches, from, like I said, every position in the restaurant. And you're an inspiration to our industry. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, it's been great to chat with you. I've really enjoyed being on here today.
Thanks so much. That was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in. Thanks to our sponsors this week, and we hope you all stay well, stay tuned, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.
People go to restaurants for lots of reasons. For fun, celebration, for family, for lifestyle. What the customer doesn't know is the thousands of details it takes to run a great restaurant. This is a high-risk, high-fail business. It's hard to find great staff. Costs are rising and profits are disappearing. It's a treacherous road, and smart operators need a professional guide. I'm Roger. I've started many highly successful, high-profit restaurants. I'm passionate about helping other owners and managers not just succeed, but knock it out of the park. I created a game-changing system, and it's filled with everything I've learned in over 20 years running super profitable, super fun restaurants. Everything from creating high-profit menu items and cost controls to staff training where your teams serve and sell, to marketing hooks, money-maximizing tips, and efficiencies across your operation. What does this mean to you? More money to invest in your restaurant, to hire a management team, time freedom, and peace of mind. You don't just want to run a restaurant. You want to dominate your competition and create a lasting legacy. Join the Academy and I'll show you how it's done.